Mary Ann Strain, the Ulster Presbyterian who left famine-racked Ireland for Otago as a child and lived out her life in North East Valley.
It's often thought that there was no direct migration to New Zealand as a result of the Great Irish Famine of the late 1840s, but that needs to be qualified slightly, as the case of the Strain family from LOUGHINISLAND parish here in County Down will demonstrate. This area was very much a Scottish settlement zone, with large numbers of Scottish Presbyterians taking up land here in the 17th century. Hans and Mary Jane Strain were members of the Seaford Presbyterian congregation and would likely have worshipped in this chapel, which was built in the 1820s. Their fourth child, Mary Ann, was baptised here in 1846 at a time when the Strains were tenant farmers in the nearby townland of Farranford. Hans's brother James, meanwhile, farmed nearby at Drumcroagh, and his family too would have worshipped in the Seaford chapel. The year of Mary Ann's birth was a hard one in Ireland. It was the second year of the Great Irish Famine, occasioned by the blight of the potato crop, which that year saw 2/3 of the harvest wiped out. In the cold winter that followed, there were outbreaks of fever and dysentery that saw rising rates of death from hunger and disease. There was a surge in immigration and rising numbers of tenants who couldn't pay their rent. Now, we don't know enough about how the Strains were placed to understand how they got on in those difficult years, but we do know they were probably quite fortunate in their landlord, because in October 1846, just as the famine difficulties really began to bite around here, the Reverend W.B. Ford, who owned almost all the land in LOUGHINISLAND parish and lived here in Seaford, announced that there would be no eviction notices issued to tenants on his estate. Nonetheless, the next 3 years were pretty grim around here in County Down, with further crop failures, disease, evictions and immigration. In 1848, Uncle James decided to leave the parish with his family of 6, gambling their future on a brand new Scottish Presbyterian settlement in faraway New Zealand. Just months after that first Strain family reached Dunedin, Mary Ann's parents decided to follow suit, setting sail from London on the ship Cornwall with their family of 5. On arrival in September 1849, they linked up with James and his family up here in North East Valley in what was then still open farmland. Later on, they extended their land holdings out onto the Tokomairero plain. Ulster Scots, like the Strains, were still very much aligned to their Scottish co-religionists, so it seems that they fitted in very easily here in Dunedin with the Scottish Free Church community.
More Strain children were born in Dunedin, so that Mary Ann grew up surrounded by a close-knit extended family. Unfortunately, her father died in 1857 as a result of a drunken accident, leaving Mary Ann as the oldest daughter to support her widowed mother. A baby brother was born after Hans's death, adding to the burden of care. As her sisters grew up and were married off, Mary Ann remained at home. She was never, in fact, to marry.
Single women are a particularly invisible group in 19th century historical sources, and we really know very little about Mary Ann in her adult life, except that she remained here on the main road in North East Valley. She didn't sign up for the franchise when women were first granted the vote in New Zealand in 1893, but she was on the electoral roll by 1899. Sadly, nothing more is known of her life in New Zealand until she died in 1925, aged 77. She's buried here in Dunedin's Southern Cemetery in this impressive family grave.